I'm telling you, the stuff that I've seen on the internet in the last, well, since the settlement with the NAR came out, it's crazy. People are freaking out, thinking that the sky is falling. And you know what? This reminds me of 2008. So I want to speak to my real estate people out there because I've already been through this meltdown process and the changes that feel like literally sometimes the sky is falling. And the stuff that, in this particular case, the stuff that the consumers are saying, which I don't know, back in 2008, the internet was available, but it wasn't as crazy as it is right now. And so maybe consumers said the same things about mortgage brokers as they're saying about real estate agents right now. But it's interesting to listen to some of the comments that the consumers and then the press and everybody else is on the bandwagon now about the industry that I'm in. And bashing us poor real estate agents. Oh my gosh, it's like, oh Lord. The keyboard warriors, they're everywhere. I don't know when it became so acceptable for people to say all kinds of hateful stuff. And honestly, I don't know why I even say that because I've been watching it. I have this 30,000 member group in Wichita Falls, and if I let it slip for 1 minute, it would be out of control because there's another group in our community called Rants and Raves that people just, they bash each other. And so this hateful stuff about real estate agents now is just sweeping the country. And guess what, folks? We're just trying to make a living. We're just out there doing something that we've chosen as a career or an occupation. We're not trying to trick anyone. We're not trying to steal their money. We're trying to help people, and yet it seems perfectly okay for them to just bash on us as a profession. And I don't know about you, but I don't watch the news for the most part, but some of this is filtering into my feed in various channels, and I want to turn it off because I think it's just insane. And I'm aware of this settlement, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to deal with it just like I dealt with it in 2008. And I'm going to tell you, in 2008, as a mortgage broker and having the government get involved and start talking about what they ended up calling loan officer comp, I'm telling you, I'm having deja vu and a little bit of PTSD. Because with people saying all kinds of hateful things, I know that other things are on the horizon. And so I want to talk to real estate agents just for a moment about what my perception is of what's going on. I've seen all kinds of ridiculous claims, and even on CNN, oh my gosh, you've got the consumers out there and the keyboard warriors, and then you've got CNN writing articles that say that house prices are going to come down, way down, right? Oh, okay. Y'all know that that's not true, right? You know that's not true. And this real estate commission business has nothing to do with real estate prices. So when somebody like a CNN says something like that, oh my gosh, it really makes our life a little bit more difficult. Really? Do you think that's going to happen when I read an article like that? This is just insanity that's happening. And guess what? This insanity is a shift and a change. And when I get through this video, I hope you feel a little bit better. But of course, they're not going to come down. That is, this is what's so funny, is think about this. Is a seller going to lower the price of their house if they say, oh, okay, so I'm going to list your house for $500,000 and I don't want to pay that 3% to the buyer's agent, so I'm going to lower the price of my house? No, it's just because they don't supposedly contractually have to pay compensation to the buyer's broker. This is the crazy part, is that they're going to keep the money for themselves. Hello? So it doesn't automatically mean that prices are going to fall or even better interest rates, which I think is even more hilarious because I hope you know this, that interest rates are driven by the Federal Reserve, which, as far as I'm concerned, I've done plenty of videos on this channel that the Federal Reserve has lost their mind, but I digress. Interest rates are not going to drop as a result of this. Although I will say we're in an election year, and if rates do come down, that I'm sure the current administration will take credit for it because of this. I mean, you watch. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But they have nothing to do with each other. Literally, this is what's so hilarious, is that this process, what's about to happen, has nothing to do with home prices. Boop, period. That's not going to happen. And so what's actually happening here? There are even people out there saying things like, this has killed the real estate industry. Oh my goodness gracious. You know, the real estate industry is bigger and better than ever. And because of what I call the unicorn years and what happened in the last few years with the, well, I have all kinds of videos on why we got to where we are. But the upshot of it is that builders stopped building for a long period of time. Now they're building. So there's more property than ever to sell, even though it feels like there's not enough inventory. And that is because people are sitting on their houses. But you can watch this channel and learn all about that. I love it when people who have no idea what they're talking about start talking about our livelihood. And that is, like I said, this happened in 2008 with the mortgage industry and the government. Oh, the government, when they get their tangled webs in there, they just don't have a clue what they're talking about. And it's really sad that we've come to this place to put people in a position of panic. But here's the thing. I want you to think back, because people are, the sky is falling, the real estate industry is going to go, you know, bottoms up and all of this stuff. When Zillow first came out, or, you know, people were saying, the sky is falling again, we'll never be able to do this, the real estate business is out. Or even when the MLS went digital, right? Or a couple of years ago when I did a video on Zillow becoming brokers, I was, you know, I wasn't in a panic, the sky wasn't falling, but I did want you all to know that because they were going to get involved in the industry, and we happen to be in a weird time, obviously the unicorn year, so things were upside down, and Zillow and Open Door and all of those places figured out that wasn't a real good program for them because the housing market flattened. But I digress again. The point I'm trying to make is that there have been many times when the little chickens are out there going, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And it's not. It's not falling. And what's happening now is we need to shore up our forces. And guess what? We can come through anything. And if you've decided that this is the livelihood that you want to pursue, then we have to make adjustments. That's all there is to it. Just like I said, I feel like I can speak to this from a different place than a lot of this conversation that's going on in our industry, because having gone through it in 2008 with the mortgage broker industry, it is the mortgage lending industry, because all of us had to succumb to this. But loan officer compensation changed forever. And yet people are still in the industry and they're still making a living out of it. I know a lot of you are old enough to remember when we had to use a giant book to find our properties. So think about our industry and how it's changed. You know, back in the day, we didn't even have an MLS. We didn't have a clue where we would be today. So life happens, shift happens. And what happens is you need to roll with the punches. There's no need for real estate agents to be afraid. Because, as I said, when Zillow came on the scene and all of the changes that have happened over time, I mean, this has been going on since 1912. Our industry has been here because there's a need and necessity for it. All of these things don't come to fruition. And like I said, even all of these open doors and the buying for cash, the thing is that we are in an industry that's very complicated, and it's imperative that we provide a service to consumers to help them navigate those waters. You know, it was interesting when we had Open Door was quite popular in the Dallas area, because I do business in Dallas as well. And they had the ability for a buyer to just enter your property with a code without a real estate agent. And you look at where Open Door is now, there is, as I said, there's a need for what we do, but you also have to provide value for what you do. So it isn't just about opening a door. And I think one of the things, one of the comments that is shared quite frequently is that, well, realtors don't do anything. All they did was open the front door for me. Well, the truth is that's not true for most real estate professionals. However, there are some of them out there that do that. And so if you think about what value do you provide, you want to be clear to yourself and then to your consumer client what you do for them. And if you think that we are going the way of people just selling their houses for cash through a Zillow or an Open Door or Redfin or all of the other places out there that do it, think again, because sellers want the most they can get for their houses. And how do we show them that we're good at marketing? That's what we do as a seller's agent. As a buyer's agent, we're helping them get the best opportunity. The market shifts always, and we have to pivot. So many times over the past 3 decades, something has stirred the pot. That's just the fact of the matter. Scare tactics are what sell. So here we are again, right? Scare tactics sell. They sold newspapers. They sell eyeballs on the internet. So I always say, stop watching the news. Do your research. Look at the settlement. Look at what NAR is putting out. Stop scrolling on social media and looking at the ridiculous things that people who know nothing about our industry are saying. Because here's the thing. What you should be watching is who is behind all of this. Because this is just the tip of the iceberg, I assure you. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying that because if you are paying attention and you are educating yourself and you understand what's causing this, then you can be better prepared. This class action did not occur on its own. It didn't. There were people and forces behind it. The DOJ has gotten involved, and they didn't get involved for no reason. Trust me. And as a person that went through 2008 with the government being highly involved in my industry, who doesn't know what they're doing, that's what I'm more afraid of than all of the consumers and their crazy ideas. And you know, it's interesting because this idea of price fixing and antitrust violations, I mean, you learn about that when you take your courses and you take your CEUs. Price fixing and antitrust. What? That's ludicrous. And it's shocking that a court of law found in favor of the class. And that is what scares me the most, is that the judicial system and the DOJ put the pressure on NAR. And I'm not sure why this judgment came in the way that it did, because there were some appeal courts that overturned some of it. But here's the thing. There is no such thing as a standard commission in our industry. What? The price fixing part just is the part that cracks me up. Because being from California and doing business in the Metroplex here in Texas and the bigger cities, the negotiation of commission, and even in Wichita Falls, I've negotiated commissions. It's alive and well everywhere. So to think and to say that we are price fixing is totally ludicrous. And honestly, I don't know why the NAR's attorneys couldn't prove that point, because I could probably do research and come up with examples that could fill a book right now. But the fact is the average commission in the United States today, these are statistics, this is stuff I'm not making up, is 4.9%. It's not 6%. Now, it's 6% in Wichita Falls. I can tell you that is the standard commission, but that's community-wide. And if you think about all the things that go into a community and why things are the way that they are, you have to live in the community. And I'm a little astounded, as I said, that the court found in favor of the class. Now, What is that class? That class was a bunch of people from Missouri that said from 2015 to 2022, oh, by the way, we got bamboozled by these real estate agents, which is hysterical because this is after the fact and they signed a contract. But I don't want to relitigate this. Part of the problem we did actually have created ourselves. Honestly, let's think about it. We have these $1 million real estate shows. We go on social media and we talk about our 17 offers on a house, and we wear all our fancy clothes and we drive our special little cars. The fact of the matter is I don't do any of that because this is a livelihood for me. This is a profession. This is a career. But there are people out there that make it seem like it's super easy and they make boatloads of money. And here is the problem, is that generally speaking, people that are in a 9-to-5 job, which I call just over broke, they are envious of people that appear to be doing nothing and making a crap load of money. Sorry. But there are so many people in our industry that have been very, well, like a little braggadocious, which is fine, and they've made real estate shows out of it. So there's that. But what I want you to think about is it's not easy. And it seems easy, but why does it seem easy to them is because we take on all of the stress for them. So part of this process is we need to be able to explain to a buyer and a seller the things that we do so that they really understand the value that we provide. Instead of saying things like, I made my seller so much money, and shoot ourselves in the foot a little bit, we need to be able to share the things that we have done for them and what we've overcome for them. So a little bit more about that in a minute. It's no wonder that some buyers, all they see is we drove up, we unlocked the door, and they said, I love the house. And you say, great, let's offer $500,000. Oh, that's not enough. Okay, $550,000. How about $600,000? So what's your maximum price? $700,000? Oh, good. Let's offer $700,000. Here's the thing is that there are real estate agents that aren't in it for the best interest, the fiduciary responsibility to the client. I guarantee you. But I know that that's not who I'm talking to. So I get why people have probably created that version of us, especially if it's a Zillow lead. If you get a Zillow lead, you pick up the phone, somebody says, I want to see a house, you take them over there, you literally just unlock the door for them. But they don't know that you did do research before you went to the house. You don't build a relationship with them. And I can understand how some of them might say that. That's not the majority of our industry. So the problem becomes is all this client sees, especially buyer's agents, which is what this whole settlement is geared towards, is the buyers, brokers, agents. That's their perception of us because we've kind of perpetuated that as an industry. So instead, what we need to do, what you need to do is show them how freaking complicated a real estate transaction is. And without scaring somebody, but at the same time, I share that with my clients so that they really understand this process is not something that you want to take lightly, and you want somebody that's going to have your back. My whole family is so sick and tired of me telling stories of how challenging closings are. And if you are a great realtor, you know what I'm talking about. Because I want to ask you, how many deals have you done that were so smooth they closed without a hitch? Oh, said no one ever. Listen, the thing is that there's all these pitfalls that happen as a result of a real estate transaction, and you know what I'm talking about. And the problem is that the people that we work for, our clients, don't know that. And my family has never heard me say, come after closing, you won't believe what happened. I closed this transaction today. There wasn't one little hiccup, not one itty bitty problem. I think they would fall over in their chairs if I did say that. It's not that something is wrong on every deal. It's just that they're navigating it is a challenge. And when you help somebody through the loan process, and you help them through the inspection, and in our case, the weather, the repairs, the seller not getting out of the house, finding, literally, I've found dead bodies in houses. And you know, the thing is that we don't put all of that on our clients, because this list goes on and on and on. I'll bet you, I'd love it if you put in the comments all of the experiences that you've had to navigate for a client. And just the fact of having a plumbing leak that's occurring exactly as at the moment that you're signing the docs. Who's responsible for that? The seller, the buyer? How do you resolve it? I mean, this is something that the public doesn't get, is that when your loan or the loan for the buyer and you're representing the seller or vice versa gets denied 3 days before closing, if people were left on their own to deal with that, the majority of the public, now I'm not saying that every single person couldn't deal with it, but they don't know what to do. And so you have your own stories. What do? We shield the buyers and the sellers as much as we can from the chaos, right? And if we called them and told them every little issue that occurred while it's happening, I'm sure we would close about half of the deals, because they would be so scared they say, oh, screw it, I'm going to rent. When we take all that stress upon ourselves, it's not easy. And so we're not just opening doors and collecting a check. This business is not a cakewalk, and it's not for the faint of heart. Now, I know that there's some people in our industry, just like every industry, that are not that valuable. I will say that. But I'm sure that you would agree that our clients do not have any idea how hard most of us work, because we make it look easy. So sometimes that's the rub, is that's why we are here where we are right now. Is this, we've made it look too easy. Darn. We're going to start to show our value. That's what's going to be the result of this. And as someone who didn't used to use a buyer's agreement, because I know my worth, and that worth translates to a client wanting to work with me in a way that is really, really made me secure. But if someone wanted to work with me, I didn't feel like I needed one. That was in the past, until I realized that over the years and time went on, I only wanted to work with those clients who loved me and I loved them. Because back in the day, you know, it was kind of challenging to have a buyer's agreement signed and say, sign this piece of paper and you're committed to me and I'm going to charge you this much money, and it's not really going to be charged to you because this agreement, you know, the seller's going to pay your fees. And, you know, it was challenging. But now it's a no-brainer to ask for these buyer's agreements, because as a result of this settlement, you will have to do it. And why do you want to do it? Is because now you know your value, or you should know your value. And when I changed how I marketed, particularly through YouTube and other outlets, clients, at the time they would be customers, would easily become clients because they saw me, they trusted me, they liked me, and we were each other's cup of tea. Because here's the thing, and for those of you real estate agents out there that believe that you serve everyone, you don't. Because everyone doesn't like you and you don't like everyone. That's the upshot of it. And so you can take some of my trainings if you want about the ideal client, and that's on another episode. So, but if you're trying to please everybody, then therein lies your problem and some of your stress that can be eliminated. So when a client hires me for my services now, we put that in writing, and I give priority to them, because I'm so super busy with everything that I'm doing, especially living in 2 different countries right now and selling real estate in 2 different countries, that I feel that I want them to feel special, that I am willing to work with them. And that is a mindset that I encourage you to have, so that going forward, you treat your clients the way they want to be treated and bring the value that you know you have. And it's imperative that we have this conversation with potential clients of what a customer is and what a client is. And I personally choose not to work with customers anymore because there just aren't enough hours in the day. And if you begin to know your value, you will adopt that feeling as well. Knowing your worth is key to creating your success and creating raving fan clients. And I talk about this all the time when I talk about marketing, is that you have to know your worth. Whether I'm teaching about marketing in real estate or some other industry, you have to know your worth. And up until now, I've never charged the buyer because we know that the buyer's representation agreement, even though it says that you're going to pay this, that the seller has been splitting the commission. Now you have to be much clearer about it. And if for some reason the terms in the MLS had shown in the past, as I said, a difference, then we talked about it. Now it's not going to be on there at all. When I first heard about the lawsuit, I said, I can't even believe the things that they are alleging that are 100% not true. And I would argue until my dying breath that there is no price fixing. There is no artificially inflating the cost of real estate with the commissions. It just doesn't happen. But here's the thing is, it doesn't matter whether it's true or not, this is where we're at. And if you think about it, it's like saying, I need to go to court and I need to hire an attorney, but I don't want to pay you, and you should do it for free because I deserve it. And you're a nice guy. That's just stupid, right? I mean, literally, that's what they're saying to us. And the consumers are out there getting on the bandwagon that buyer's agents should just show us the house because we want to see it. Oh, Lord have mercy. You know that that's not true. So what are we going to do about it? We have to understand and accept ourselves as professionals, and that your expertise is not free of charge. The whole thing is you understanding and knowing your value. And that is going to be the make or break it when it comes to the rubber hitting the road. It makes no sense that we would discount ourselves when we do bring value. I'm sitting here, I'm still gobsmacked that NAR lost the case, and in my humble opinion was extorted from appealing, because that's what's happened, is they've settled because they were going to appeal with every bone and, you know, molecule in their fiber. But here's what happened. I can't evidence that this is the truth, but the DOJ got involved. Which really reminds me of back in 2008 when the government got involved. And I'm telling you, this settlement doesn't bother me as much as why it happened and who the players are. But it is what it is. And so it wasn't, as I said, in 2008, it wasn't the brokers who were at fault. Wall Street selling derivatives as A paper when they were D and F, and who got bailed out. This is not going to help the consumer, just like it didn't help the consumer back in 2008. What it did is help the big banks, bailed them out. And so what's interesting about this is that they're so similar that, like I said, I have PTSD and a little bit of deja vu when it comes to watching what's happening. Here we are again with the government leaning on an industry in a way that we should stand up and take notice. But the NAR feels that they are bleeding money because they were told that it's going to cost billions for them to appeal. My feeling is they should take it all the way to the Supreme Court, but I'm not in charge. So what we have is what we have right now. And sadly, attorneys are the ones that are going to win. The consumers are going to lose. And I'm sure there's going to be ads and mailers to anyone who sold their home between 2018 and 2022 to join another class. Because this was just in Missouri. But that's the world we live in, and they're going to make $7, you know, per person, and the attorneys are going to make bank. But we are going to be the target for ambulance chasers. That's unfortunate, I'm quite sure. But for now, we have a new normal. So what is that new normal? I don't know about you, but I work harder as a real estate agent than anyone I know who works a 9-to-5 job. Anyone. Your time is not always your own if you are a real estate professional. It just isn't. So all those Karens out there, those keyboard warriors bashing realtors, is almost comical. We just sit around, open doors and collect checks. Open doors and collect checks. Right? Bullshit is what I call on that. But the fact of the matter is if you don't explain to somebody what you're doing, then that's the perception that they have and that's what they believe. The brass tacks of this whole thing is it's not as if the 6% commission is going away. That's it. It's not going away, and it will depend greatly, as it does now, on the community that you live in. So in Southern California and many big cities, there are plenty of flat fee brokers out there, 1% commissions and the like. But that's what makes this whole case laughable, is that commissions are negotiated all the frickin' time. As I said, the average commission is 4.9%. So if the average commission is in the US, if the average commission is 4.9%, that means that some are 1 and some are 2 and some are 6 and some are 7 and who knows what. But the fact is that it's not, the average is not 6% even as we speak before all of this happened. The biggest change is that you cannot advertise, show the commission on the MLS or even in private notes for what the split would be or what the seller has agreed to pay to the buyer's broker. That's it. Now, I understand you can show it. I believe you can show it on showing time or on your website. And of course, you're going to tell each other, right? You might have to communicate with another realtor. So those realtors out there that never pick up their phone, you might have to pick up your phone now. The seller's agent is still allowed to pay the buyer's agent. And I say agent, I know it's broker. But the fact of the matter is, listing appointments will change in light of this from the perspective of where you live, how your community is. And given that consumers are all watching inaccurate news and social media feeds, you will now have a new conversation. Yeah, a new conversation. And if the seller chooses not to offer compensation to the buyer's broker, and the buyer's broker now has a buyer's agreement to pay their fee, which they must have, then the seller puts themselves at a disadvantage of having less buyers look at their homes. I mean, that's just a fact of life. You know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but we don't need to be scared about this. We need to learn how to value ourselves and share what our value is worth. Because this is especially true in a community like mine, which is predominantly VA and FHA buyers. They barely have enough for the down payment, literally. And they have to have the seller pay their closing costs. So what happens if they have to pay a real estate commission? Holy crap. Having that conversation with your seller is going to be adamant about them not paying a commission to the buyers. You're going to have a conversation with them that they're doing their property a disservice if they choose to require a buyer to pay their own agent's commission. It truly just is that. And as I said, it's going to be common and customary for wherever you are. And I don't know, maybe things will change in the community that I live in, but it's going to change wherever you live. So saying things like, I would recommend that you consider how many people would not be able to pay this in your given community is very important to share with your seller. You are going to have to really learn to have a conversation with both buyer and sellers about what is at stake here. And on the flip side, you have to have a similar conversation with buyers. You really are going to have a different conversation with buyers than you ever have before. It isn't literally going to be pick up a Zillow call and go and open a door If you do not have a relationship established with your buyers through something like social media or a referral, it could be more challenging to have these conversations since they may be one of those customers who has watched the mainstream news and is unwilling to pay for your services because they've heard, I don't have to pay for a buyer's agent. And then what do? Do you discount your value? You just take anything? I mean, there's going to be people out there that do that, but I, trust me, say to you, know your value, know your worth, and share it with your prospective clients. This is when you must know your worth. One of the best things I ever did was put myself front and center through YouTube by being authentic. When someone finds me on YouTube, I usually get a 3-page email saying everything they want. They've watched every video on my channel and they want to work with me. And from our first Zoom call, it's a love fest because this individual already knows what it would be like to work with me. And you have to build these relationships. So maybe it's not going to be just picking up a Zillow call and going and opening a door, because you have to let somebody know what it is that your value is in this industry, especially if you're going to ask them. If they find a house where the seller's not paying the buyer's commission, what are they going to do? Because if they just click the link to see a house, trust me when I say they've read the news, unfortunately. So it could be a whole different conversation now. Instead of having a seller's appointment, you've got a buyer's appointment. You're going to have to outline everything you will do for them, what sets you apart, and why they would want to make a commitment to you and potentially pay for your services and not somebody else's. And that's why when I talk about marketing, what is your value proposition? And if you don't know that, now is the time to learn that. And in some sense, this is going to separate the wheat from the chaff. Because I look back on those years when I didn't get a signed buyer's agreement and showed them every house in the city only to have them go to an open house and make an offer. So in this industry, we spend a lot of time doing things that we don't get compensated for. And in so many ways, this is a great outcome for this settlement, is because you are now having to look at what you provide for a consumer, then a client. And if you don't already have a buyer's presentation, I would highly recommend that you create it now. And it needs to be awesome, that you have to explain how you are being paid. Because up until now, you didn't have to. But the buyers have been lulled into belief that we are free to them. And that's what's part of this difficulty, is that they think we're free when we're not. The reality is that what we do is not free. You get to explain now to them how you get paid under this new era so that nothing is a surprise and so that they fully understand exactly what that means for them. And in this case, you may or may not have to pay the entire fee or a portion of it. In this circumstance, it's really, really important that you explain to that buyer exactly what the new process is, because we don't know how it's going to shake out exactly, because of all the press and the sellers believing that they can forego the buyer's commission in an attempt to lower the prices, which is so hilarious. But we'll figure it out. We definitely are going to figure it out. And in a community that is so heavy FHA and VA here, I suspect that there won't be much change. That's my prediction. But is that true? No. There are still going to be sellers who test the process. I guarantee you. You clearly have to prepare a buyer for that. Particularly the possibility that their dream home may not be available, given that they don't have the funds. They just don't have the funds. And I foresee buyer's commissions to be much like seller commissions, the same way we do with closing costs. If it becomes a seller concession going forward, hopefully, Fannie and Freddie, FHA and VA are going to weigh in on this, because if the administration can go in there and say, we really want the real estate agents to pay attention to lowering this 6% so that we can lower home prices, BS. But the fact of the matter is they can at least get the governmental entities who are lending to get on board, so that we can at least incorporate it into the transaction itself. Because right now you could not put the buyer's commission in there and still pay closing costs with the cap of 6% or 3% or 4% for VA. And with VA won't even let that happen. I mean, they have a standing rule that says you can't do it. So things are going to shift. They're going to shake out. Things are going to change. Things are going to change. And it's just being prepared, being on top of it. And we can only wait and see, but you can be proactive. This is why you must have an incredible buyer's presentation, so that you can explain why your value is so much more than anybody else's, and the things that you're going to do for a buyer. All the things that can go wrong and how you plan to overcome those things should they happen. Let them know you're going to have a plan in place ahead of time, so that they don't get their loan denied 3 days before closing. How you're going to overcome that barrier, how you're going to help them through the inspection process, how you're going to talk about repairs. It's more than you helping them buy a house. They need to know you are worth every penny that you're going to charge. And if the seller is not going to cover that fee 100% and they have to pay it, that you're worth every single cent. I also foresee that this could be problematic going forward, that the buyers are going to start to sue the sellers for not disclosing this, because they go in and they see this property and it's their dream house, and then boom, they can't get it because they don't have the money. Remind a buyer that they don't want to be hung out to dry if they decide to do this on their own. Because I know that there's plenty of buyers out there that are thinking, I'm going to just buy this house directly from the seller's agent and do all the work myself. Oh, what a nightmare. And you know this. So the thing is, you want to explain to them how important your function is, your service is, so that they don't get to closing if they decide to do it on their own. And instead of $20,000, they have to bring in $30,000. So you can see that explaining this to someone who calls you off Zillow may be challenging in the best circumstances. And if you learn to put yourself out there to build trust with your potential clients before you ever have a conversation through various channels, you have a much easier time of it. Believe me. And if your ideal client is already watching you, following you, knows your value, they're going to say yes. And that's why I teach real estate agents marketing from top to bottom, so that you don't get left out in the cold with this settlement. How do you explain to someone you've never met that you're going to hold their hand through the whole transaction and move heaven and earth for them to get them their dream home? It's relational. And I did have an occasion to have that very conversation a few years ago, right when I started my YouTube channel. This customer came through a Zillow lead, because I did used to buy Zillow leads. She was calling about, on Zillow, it was a FSBO. And her first words to me were, realtors are vultures. I went, okay, this conversation's going really well. Wow. What a way to start a conversation. By the end of the conversation, after showing her my YouTube channel, and I talked her off the vulture ledge, she became the most amazing client, and afterwards a friend. This is what this industry is about. It's about being heart-centered, heartfelt, and leading from your authenticity. And when you do that, you can never go wrong. And I actually hope that this educates consumers to not just take the first realtor that they speak to on the phone from Zillow and interview a buyer's agent as thoroughly as a seller interviews a seller's agent. To be the best agent, you have to invest in yourself, learn more about your industry, and make a commitment to educate your clients as well as yourself. So if you are freaking out right now, thinking real estate was the worst decision of my life, learning is your best friend. Hiring a coach is your best action, and that's why I love coaching real estate agents. When you are better prepared than your counterparts, just because you don't have a ton of experience, you shine. When you can answer every question, explain every guideline, and rule to your clients, they feel a sense of confidence and trust. And I understand this state, which is what's so important when you are a real estate agent, to be really clear about where you live. Being from California and doing business in Colorado, Texas is another animal. But knowing why we do the things that we do here, what homestead laws are, and explaining those things to my clients, they know I know what I'm talking about. And that's what I'm going to say to you is learn, invest in yourself, hire a coach, and when you sound professional, but you're also approachable, it's a winning combination. It's going to be interesting to see who makes the cut. And sadly, I see agents all the time who do minimal work and receive the compensation that other agents put in so much more time. So which one are you? What you want is a buyer who is so excited to hire you and thinks you are the bee's knees. And as for this idea that the sky is falling, just like everything else in this industry, it's cyclical. And when the federal government stuck their noses into the mortgage industry back in 2008, I had such a sour taste in my mouth because they didn't know what they were doing, including creating loan officer compensation, which if any of you know what that looked like back then, it wasn't very fun. But there were thousands who left the industry, including myself for a time, until this could shake itself out. The truth is that flourishing as a real estate that real estate is flourishing. And yes, there are going to be some agents who find other ways to make a living. And it certainly won't be millions of them exiting the industry. Real estate is not dead. It's not. It's too complicated of a process for the average consumer to deal with. And all the pundits in the press and all the media and all the social conversation is not correct. Interest rates won't go down as a result of this. Prices aren't going to go down as a result of this. The market is always right. This is what I've always said for the past 30 years. The market is always right. The market will dictate what's about to happen. And these ridiculous claims come from people who clearly do not know how the market works. And if you were to ask me back, I don't know, a million years ago when bread got up to be $1 a loaf, when it used to be 25 cents when I was a kid, and somebody said, do you think it'll ever go back to 25 cents a loaf? Of course not. Once things go up, they rarely come back down unless we have a very global economic challenge, say, oh, I don't know, a COVID or something, Wall Street implodes. But here's the thing. Do you want to be the cream of the crop and float to the top? Do this. Continue to educate consumers and explain to them how they all work, how your whole industry works. You be the smartest person in the room because you want to be the best. It's time to get ahead of the pack and start explaining what is happening to your tribe. Why would someone want to hire a professional real estate agent? To help them with all their real estate needs that are more complicated than they even know. And do you have that answer? Yes? No? As a personal note, I'm not going to lose any sleep over losing agents in this industry who have only been doing this to make a buck, honestly. Because there's so many more of us that are truly doing this with their whole heart completely. And I've been in this industry for 30 years, and there are highs and there are lows. And if you are one of the few who've chosen to play the long game, you learn to pivot, reinvent yourself, and be open to new ideas and opportunities. Being born and raised in Southern California, we measure directions, distances in time, not miles. If you're going someplace, you ask, how long will it take to get there? It may be 26 miles, and if you travel at one time of the day, it takes 3 hours. And if you travel at another time of the day, it might take you an hour. But the bottom line is, you will end up there no matter how long it takes. If you are truly in this as a career and an opportunity, don't freak out. Trust me, I've seen it all. And if you know your value and your skills and your niche, and you share that clearly and succinctly, you will thrive and you will get there eventually. There will be collateral damage for sure and unintended consequences, but some of those unintended consequences will be fabulous, I guarantee you. Changes, they are a-coming. And the question is, are you ready to swing for the fences to create your dreams? I love my profession, and I want all those realtors out there who love it as well and use it as a springboard to create their dreams, to find solace in knowing that good things are on the way.